But yeah, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I have my moments of cynicism. You know, I don't know. I don't know that I would call myself an optimist generally. Um, I have my moments of cynicism. Like, is this just going to be a hashtag? Something, like everybody, uh, we move on when the next story comes, and those of us with the privilege to move on do move on. And yeah, I worry about that. I obviously I think it's great to see all of the soul searching that's happening. But and I guess I'm saying this for myself and for everybody. I just, want sustained attention to the issue because I've seen in my own mind over the past engagement, distraction, engagement, distraction.
Yeah. And I think there will be some of that, like just sort of that ricochet or that swing back, but something feels different. Like something has shifted. We talked about that in the podcast, like you can't unsee it, and you challenged that and said, no, you can. But there's something about this moment that there's not an unseeing possible, you know? And that doesn't mean there's going to be this sustained, really focused engagement or attention, but I don't know. It feels like there's no going back now.
I hope that's right. And part of me is tempted to agree with that. It won't always have, of course, because it can't always have this level of intensity and engagement. Um, yeah, but I think there's an indelible thing. I think slash hope that there's an indelible thing that happens when you watch 8 minutes and 40 odd seconds of horror, multiple times. Hopefully, people have watched it. If those who think they can handle it have watched it and taken it in, yeah, you definitely can't unsee that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really surprised. I mean, some of it seems very disingenuous and kind of just empty, but the the amount of people and groups of people, corporations and um, organizations that are engaging in this conversation in a different way.
You know, I sent Ben and ABC News did a story about. There's been some criticism of some corporations weighing in ways that seem disingenuous or empty, or you put out a nice press release, but you're not actually doing anything. Um, I sent them as a cautionary tale, like we need to do something here. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How's Alexander doing in the move?
yeah, he's doing all right. Yeah, he's happy. He's happy. Blissfully unaware of all of the tumult around him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's got basically an overnight ready-made sister because we moved in with my cousin who's got a daughter. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting process to watch.
The same age?
Yeah,
Oh, that's so great.
it is. Yes. Um, okay, it's showtime. So should I start here? You ready to go, Seb? If I kick things off?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to TPH Live, the final TPH Live. I say with some heaviness and sadness because it's been an incredible experience. You may notice, and I'm coming to you from a different place. This is the closet at a new house where we're going to live for a little while. And yeah, happy to be here, but sad not to be in New York City, which is where my heart is. As I said on the show the other day, we booted up TPH Live as really an experiment to see if we could meet what was obviously going to be and ultimately became a really big need in the midst of the pandemic, with so many people told that you got to stay home for the most part. And as the country is turning a corner, and as the world is turning a corner, we're going to sunset this experiment today. But of course, for those of you who uh, may feel that you need continued support from the company, we're offering 3 months free subscription to the app if you don't have a subscription. We're also aware that not only now are we dealing with a pandemic, but also a pandemic and an economic crisis, but also now all of the fear and sadness and anger that's come in the wake of the death of George Floyd and others. And so we are taking steps to meet your needs during this time as well. On the podcast, we've just released 2 big episodes, one with Sebene Selassie, who you're going to hear from in a moment, and another from Lama Rod Owens. And then we released a short episode today. We're going to continue on this subject next week as well. And we're going to be releasing free talks and guided meditations on the 10% Happier, specifically on this issue. And while today is the end of our live offering here on TPH Live, we are going to take a breath, regroup, and start thinking about how we're going to do live events, live guided meditations going forward. So you haven't heard the last from us on this. So enough from me. Let's bring in Sebene Selassie, who is a writer and teacher who lives in Brooklyn, New York, and and when I say meditation teacher, she's one of the core meditation teachers on the 10% Happier app, and is a huge part of not only of what we offer publicly, but in terms of doing work with us as a team. She's also been a key member. So Seb, fitting that you're here for the last TPH Live. Thanks for doing it.
Oh, thank you, Dan. It's an honor.
So let's just start with what has become sort of a loaded question these days, which is, how are you?
Right now I am doing well. It was nice to connect with you and the team a little bit before this call, and just, consider I was here last Friday and it does not feel like a week ago. It feels like a month ago. So during this week, I just feel like I've been processing so much. I was mentioning to you that I really fell off my formal practice. So that's like when I set aside time I do a lying down practice a lot, but what most people call sitting. And, just feeling the impact of all of the news, all of the tweets, all of the videos, and just witnessing how much it took out of me. So that's kind of what I would like to explore today too, is how do we rebalance and recalibrate and make intentions to stay kind of intimate with our experience instead of getting bowled over by things and not noticing it until we're flattened.
Yeah, I really see that not only in times of sort of national crisis, even in my everyday life when things aren't so up in the air and so painful. This sort of toppling forward that just happens to me during the day, that I'm just swept up in the forward momentum of checking things off of my to-do list, et cetera, and not some days not doing a good job of pulling back and checking out what's actually happening for me. And yes, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, in our day-to-day lives, depending on how busy we are, we might be able to negotiate a little bit more space or time. And that can change depending on what's happening. But what I've noticed with this news cycle and with the, just the gravity and profundity of what's happening, is that I keep getting sucked back in.
Mhm.
Like I keep refreshing to see what's happening because it's all changing so quickly.
Yeah,
So much has happened just in this past week
yeah,
or 2 weeks, and we're all navigating that, and
yeah.
not just us, also young people who we may need to support, kids. There's really a lot to process, and sometimes, like with me, as I admitted, our practice can kind of fall to the side, and so how important it is to reconnect and feel what we're feeling, so that we have more fortitude to kind of face what doesn't seem like it's stopping for now.
I just want to point out that as it pertains to the practice, this is a little bit technical, but as it pertains to the practice, you're modeling something quite useful there, because I think when people fall off the wagon and don't keep up with their practice, they can get into a shame spiral around that. And you're reporting it pretty matter of factly, giving your, seems to me, well, I'm reading into what you're saying, that look, yeah, this is a crazy time, a crazy week. I didn't practice that much, but I'm not seeing you self-flagellate over it. Um, that's point number one. And point number two is that in some ways I've found that some days when I don't get to meditate, or even if it's, a crazy stretch and I really can't meditate for a couple of days at a time, there's a utility there because I get to see how useful the practice is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, I think there's kind of like, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but like a microcosm, macrocosm thing happening, because there's our overall practice and not beating ourselves up for that, trying to make something happen. It should be a certain way. And then within our practice, we also cultivate that same allowing of however we are. We meet whatever is happening with a sense of clarity and kindness. So we see clearly, oh, wow, I've not practiced and look at the effect on me. And when we are practicing, we can see, oh, look at this. I get caught up in thinking about what's the current events or whatever we're distracted by. And we meet that with kindness too. So it's both, right?
Well, I see that. Yes, it is both. I totally agree, and I see. Because I just took a look at the clock that it's 3:07. So I've taken us over the allotted time before we're supposed to start meditating. Jess is saying it's okay, but let's meditate. And I want to encourage people on this final episode. If you've got questions pertaining to the subject of the day, which is sort of being intimate, with whatever you feel, especially in times like this when emotions are really really powerful, send them in and we'll run them by Seb on the backside of this meditation. But for now, over to you, Maestro.
Great. So, we're going to really practice with being intimate with our experience. And that involves the mind and thoughts, maybe thoughts showing up as emotions. But we're really going to use, as usual, the body as the place to anchor our awareness, because the body is in the present moment. It reveals so much about what we're feeling. Every thought, every emotion you're having is also experienced in the body. So bring some comfort to your posture right now. Find a way of sitting or lying down or standing that helps you feel really grounded, so that you experience that balance, that possibility for really resetting, recalibrating. You might want to roll your shoulders up and back just to bring some openness to the chest. And just check in with what's happening right now. So the mind may be all over the place. There may be concerns or questions. You may be hearing the music in the streets in Brooklyn behind me. But just bring your awareness to sensations in the body, this alive animal experience that is giving us so much information. In every moment, there are sensations, there are feelings. And as you continue to settle the awareness on the body, you might want to choose an anchor or a way of resting your attention, so you have a place to come back to when the mind gets caught or lost in thought. And that's not when, it's not if, it's when. So perhaps choosing the breath or the sensation of feeling the feet on the floor or your seat underneath you. And really noticing if you're thinking about the breath or the body, or if you can really sense. So you become intimate with your experience. this sensory, alive process that's always changing. And perhaps you'll just stay here for the next few moments, feeling the breath coming in and out. Or perhaps there is a particular feeling, emotion, something that's grabbing your attention. And rather than going into a story about it, just notice if you can track that in the body. Is that connected to a particular sensation? Often we feel a lot in the chest or in the belly, in the throat. And not needing to do anything about this sensation, just allowing it, becoming intimate with our experience, noticing what's happening, allowing this to reground us, reconnect us, bring some stability. As we end this meditation, you might want to notice if there's any longing or desire for yourself, an intention that you'd like to set for what you'd like your practice to look like. Perhaps it's keeping this meditation time for yourself every week, even if TPH Live is gone. It can live in you. Perhaps it's to continue to cultivate a sense of community in your practice. Allow yourself to be intimate with your experience as you open your eyes, we come back. I blot my hot flash.
That's another thing you've modeled very well, which I think is, a lot of people don't, this is off the subject of the day, but a lot of people don't talk about menopause very openly. And you talk about your hot flashes very openly. I think it's really useful, really helpful.
Oh, good. Yeah. I have medically induced menopause. So it's connected to my cancer treatment that I went into menopause so early. So there's probably a different experience of menopause than maybe women who go into it naturally, which allows me a little bit of freedom to talk about it. But I'm going to keep talking about it.
+1
Yeah.
for me. Jess, you sent me, oh, there it is. Scott Brown asks, I'd love to hear Seb talk about finding goodness in ourselves at this time. Does taking refuge in our own innate goodness, I lost it, Jess, can you post it again? Does taking refuge in our own innate goodness help us combat racism? Thank you.
Such a good question, Scott. And Dan, I think in the podcast episode we touch on this, maybe not really calling it innate goodness, but looking at the fact that racism is not natural. It was constructed, as Ta-Nehisi Coates says, race is the child of racism, not the other way around. So race as a construct was created to justify racism, justify the slave trade and colonialism. So they're very constructed ways of thinking. And it's not that any of us want to naturally believe that. So Scott I feel is pointing to something true about all the biases that we have, that we've learned them. We've learned them from the systems around us. We've internalized the way those systems categorize and make hierarchies of people. And so we can unlearn them. And I think that's our innate possibility for goodness, is recognizing that these are constructs and that we can undo those constructs. So the reason why I put it like that is because I don't want to bypass by sort of resting into our goodness only, as if that will somehow magically erase racism, or any kinds of oppression or injustices. But I think recognizing our goodness allows us to deconstruct and dismantle them.
Blanca asks, how to deal with being tired mentally from all that stuff going on, mental work on myself or studying, sleep. I lost it. Sorry. Sleep won't help anymore, she writes.
Blanca, I hear you. I think that there is something to be said for radical self-care, that right now, especially for those of us who are in any way on the front lines, whether of the pandemic or the recent events, if we are serving in particular ways, or just parenting is one way where there's a lot of expenditure of energy. And some of it doesn't feel negotiable, right? If you're a parent who has to work full time from home, and also homeschool, it doesn't feel like there's any space to rest. And this is where, there has to be some challenge to the systems. So there are a lot of oppressive systems, and some of that is being revealed in this process, like who gets to have space and time to rest right now, and how do we negotiate that we can have that too. Not everyone is in the position where they can challenge their employer, but some of us may need to start to speak up to demand more space and time for parenting or for rest. And then some of us need to do that for ourselves. I'm freelance, basically. I negotiate all my time and work, and yet I find it so hard to step away from a screen and go for a walk. And I need to do that for myself. It's not going to be built into the system for me. So where do I draw the boundaries, and how do I negotiate that for myself?
Well said. Brigitte asks, how can I continue my practice without TPH Live?
Brigitte, I think there's a sort of, there's a tendency in a lot of Western meditation communities, and maybe this is accentuated by apps too, that we need to, if we're failing at meditation in some way, or we feel we're failing at meditation, it's on us. But all of these traditions come from a place where community is really, really emphasized. And I've found that for myself, that I've been meditating a long time. I'm able to kind of maintain my practice. But I'll tell you, my practice is much stronger when my husband's practice is strong. And his is really strong right now. And that really supports me. But we all need to find those connections and that support. So really encourage you to stick with 10% Happier as an app, which has built-in coaches and ways of connecting, but also to maybe check out, there are so many meditations happening now online. If you really want that contact from a Zoom call, a lot of those meditations offer opportunities for question and answer and for interactions. So there are probably resources that you can find through many websites. And Dan, maybe you could speak to what TPH can offer.
Are you doing, Seb, are you going to be doing guided meditations in a public way to offer to the public that people should know about?
I do different things. I teach a lot of, workshops and different events, which are all listed on my website. Some of them are probably not as interesting to other people. I don't know how many nerdy Buddhists there are here that really want to dive into kind of looking at etymology and culture of Buddhism. But
I do.
But yeah, I do have some events and things listed on my website.
Yeah, I'm with you on the nerdery. I was last night lying in my new bed, which is right over there. I was before I went to bed last night reading a book on the Satipatthana Suttas, which you recommended to me actually. The Analayo
Analaya's
book.
book, oh,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
so good.
Um, Yeah, so just in terms of recommending other resources, I do, yeah, I believe many teachers, if you look at their websites like Sharon Salzberg and Joseph Goldstein and John Kabat-Zinn, some of the old school folks, Tara Brock as well, and then younger teachers uh, like Sev and Alexis Santos, I would be checking out their websites and seeing what they're offering. I think there's a lot out there in terms of the app. Yes, as I said at the top, 3 months free access for anybody who doesn't have a subscription right now. And in that time, we're going to be taking a look at what our live offerings will be going forward. It's going to be a big topic of discussion for us. And then also we're going to be running sometime soon in the next couple of months another free meditation challenge, which should be a support for your practice as well. So we're really thinking about everybody and trying to find ways to help people stay in the game here. We are a little bit out of time here, but I want to say thank you to a bunch of people. I want to say thank you to all of the teachers, Seb, chief among them, but so many other teachers who participated in TPH Live over these last few months. Jeff, Oren, Susan, Joseph and Sharon at the beginning. The list goes on and on. So there's so many teachers who really were very generous with their time to help us mount this. I also want to thank the people who worked so hard to make this possible. People like Crystal and Jess and Connor and Liz and Derek and Amy, who's in the message boards with all of you all the time, Jade, who books our teachers, Allison, who sends the emails out to you. So many people out there who do an enormous amount of work and have done an enormous amount of work to get this product up and running. And we're now going to regroup, take a breath, and figure out what our next adventures will look like, because we're always, we spend so much time dreaming up cool ways to help people get into meditation. So we're going to be back to the drawing board after a little bit of a well-deserved break. Who else? Well, I also want to thank all of you for doing this with us every day. So many of you really joined us every day, or most every day. I was talking to Amy Breckenridge, who is the person who's in the chat room with all of you guys, the chat section. And she was telling me how amazing all of you are and how it's just been the highlight of her day. So thank you all for joining us. We care a lot about you and the fact that we've been able to attract such amazing people is incredibly gratifying for all of us. Jess, did I leave anybody out that I should have said, made a shout out to? No? Okay, she's telling me I did okay. That's like one of the first times she's told me that. Oh yeah. Today this is Friday, so we want to be encouraging all of you to give to a nonprofit that we've identified. Every Friday we've been doing this. This is a group that, as we do every Friday, that we at TPH will be supporting. We encourage you to do it if you can do so comfortably. So no pressure here, but it's kind of a fun thing for us all to do together. Jess, can you put the information up? Okay, so it's, actually, I can't read that. Jess, can you come on and read it? Because I can't read it on the screen.
Yes, 1 second. Let's see if Connor, can you put me up? Is that possible?
Well,
good,
go ahead.
thanks.
We can hear you.
Okay, well, I'll just start reading it, and we'll,
this is
Connor,
Jess.
Connor, if you can just put up the page so we can see the foundation page, and then I'll just read underneath it. So the Loveland Foundation is the one that we are hoping to support today. And the pandemic and the resulting economic crisis and the surrounding unrest right now surrounding police brutality targeting Black people has made 2020 an emotionally and physically exhausting year for many Americans. All of those issues are greatly affecting mental health for communities of color, those who are already facing challenges for access to mental health. So the foundation that we're hoping to support today, and we're going to be supporting, and we hope that you guys will support, is the Loveland Foundation, which is helping to close the gap between high quality therapy sessions for communities of color, and particularly with a focus for Black women and girls. And they invest in mental health for Black women and girls, and hoping to change their lives and the communities for generations to come. And so no donation is too small, and we hope that you guys can also support them today.
Great job, Jess. Thank you. Speaking of Black women, we should also point out that there's a lot of justified focus on the horror of what happened to George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, but there's a woman who would have turned 27 years old today. Her name is Breonna Taylor. And as our colleague Crystal has reminded me on occasion, we really should not be leaving Breonna out of our thoughts and our meditation at this point in history. So, and sad about at this point in history. And we really appreciate all of you being with us during this time. Seb, any final thoughts before we close this out?
Just, really thankful, appreciative for all of you and the whole team. You guys have been doing a lot of work, and it feels really meaningful, and just really, really honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
We're honored to have you as a part of it. Thank you for dedicating so much time. And thanks everybody again for doing this with us. I can't wait to see what we do next. Something soon. And in the meantime, please stay safe.